Hi everyone, welcome to the Brave and Wolf channel. This is Anna, and today I'm planning on finishing reading the first chapter of this, The Mayan Factor, The Path Beyond Technology by Jose Argüelles. We just have a few pages left, and I just want to finish chapter 1 so we can start chapter 2 because it's very interesting. So I'm just gonna put my headphone on and I'm just gonna get to it. Let's see. Okay, so last time we ended with the last sentence that was, given the conditions of the world today, who is to say that they weren't correct? Such, at least, were our reasoning by the late 1970s, when I entered to my own hell realm of personal crisis and alcoholic breakdown. When I emerged from this dislocation of myself in 1981 and looked around, it appeared that the global crisis of the 1960s had now become endemic, so much that it was taken for granted. My own research had taken me to places of synthesis of seeing the earth as a whole organism. Yet my inner feeling was that the trust of modern civilization was taking things to the point we were either the divine interference or the extinction become our legacy. For me, the situation meant taking a leap, plunging off the edge as it was, into mental territory that had been declared extinct or taboo by the prevailing culture standards. For the first time in close to a decade, I took a visual from expression of principal outlet for what I needed to learn. Through a series of collage and sumi ink paintings on large gold and silver board, the Planet Art series, I found myself entering a phase of heightened attunement with the earth. This time come to take seriously the notion of planetary mind or planetary consciousness. Through my studies of art, history, and my own personal investigation, the conviction have arisen in me that not only was the earth alive, but the patterns of its life actually informs. From the whole to the part, all aspects of this evolution, inclusive of the process that we call civilization, the totality of interaction between the earth, larger than life, and the individual and group responses to this greater life-defined planet Art. In this larger process, I dimly perceive the Maya as being the navigators or charters of the waters of galactic synchronization. The Egyptian the Egyptian, on the other hand, some 3,000 years earlier, had been responsible for anchoring and setting the course of the earth through the Great Pyramid in the ocean of the galactic life. Thinking, perceiving, and feeling in this expanded way led to an amazing series of explorations, meetings, and coincidences. In the fall of 1981, after I met and became involved with Lloydine Boris, a dancer and fellow visionary, I wrote a science fiction document entitled Art Planet Chronicles, The Making of the Fifth Ring. The actual perspective of this imaginative planet art tale, set sometime in the future, was from the star system Argüelles. Wherever the merit of this unpublished story, it seemed imperative to develop a consciousness that looked to our planet affairs from afar, so that the coherence might emerge from the confusion of the daily papers and nuclear terrorism. This attitude, I was to discover, was also essential for penetrating more fully the Mayan mystery. Could the system of the Maya be a code matrix that synchronized with a galactically evolved knowledge base adapted to the idiosyncrasies of the planet? This line of thinking led inevitably to the compendium of the code matrices. Earth ascending began initially and text on geomancy. Already. Earth divination. The chief point of the departure in this book has been the coincidence, discovered or at least expanded into the science of philosophical inquiry by Martin Schoenberg, of the identity of the I Ching and the 64 codons, the code word of the DNA, the generic code. For myself, the synchronously related discovery to each of the rows, horizontally and vertical, in Ben Franklin's magic square of 8 Yules, the sum of 260, led me to consideration of the relation between the Maya sacred calendar matrix, the 260-unit solskin, and the I Ching. What I followed was an unbidden flow of maps of matrices, which constitute the Earth ascending, the key codes figuring the binary triplet configuration, whose base is the Maya sacred calendar. Oh my gosh, I couldn't butcher that. Here, there's a cool picture. I am aware that to many, the maps of Earth ascending appear like a foreign language. This is not surprise, or even for myself, the actual understanding of the map did not come until after the publication of the book in 1984. What I slowly began to realize was that the maps, like the Mayan system itself, were from afar. Now, up in the early 1980s, I had not really considered the nature of the UFOs or extraterrestrial intelligence. But with the phenomenon of channeling the material in Earth ascending, I had begun taking a new level of possibilities. Was the science fiction work that had preceded Earth ascending, with its Arcturian perspective, a clue both to the origin of the information and the Mayan mystery? If I were, then it was also clear to me that the information transmission from different places in the galaxy was not dependent on space-time variables, but pointed instead of the principle of resonant diffusion. The consideration of life and intelligence of other worlds received a major impetus in the late 1983, when I met with Paul Shea of Stanford Research Institute and Richard Hoagland, a science writer from or with NSA. Hoagland had been involved in the Viking probe to Mars that occurred in 1976. He, for one, had not been satisfied with the way NASA had handled the discovery of certain phenomena on Mars, including a large face that appeared to be carved in the mesotop. On looking in the computer-enhanced photos of Hoagland was working with, I was unstrung. Something like a memory was stirred in me, but it was vaster, more profound, and in the infinity more haunting than any memory that I had ever known. My initial impression was that the civilization evolved life has evolved on Mars, and this civilization had met with a fateful, tragic end. In the instantaneous recognition of this fact, from looking at photos, I also perceived that the knowledge of the event was somehow still present and active in the Earth's field of the consciousness. I'll be right back. Hold on. Sorry about that, you guys. I had to get a drink. So on Christmas morning on 1983, I made a serendipitous discovery. Wanting to share with my family the news from Mars, to my delight, I found photos of the Martian face in a book, The New Solar System, which I had owned for several years, but I never looked at it carefully. Then, because of the covers look similar, I picked up a copy of Lucy Lippol's Overlay, The Influence of Primitive Art and Contemporary Art, which I had purchased as a gift in Los Angeles the day before my meeting with Hogland. Randomly opening Lippard's text on page 144, I was jolted by the photo that appeared in the upper left-hand corner, a hauntingly familiar face, a model for a sculpture by Isamu Noguchi, done in 1947, 20 years before the Vikings' missions, entitled The Sculpture to be Seen from Mars. If the NASA information had evoked the actually of life in other worlds, the discovery of Noguchi's work, which would have been the same size as the Martian face, it had been completed, evoked in me, with shocking precision, the transmission of information by the principle of resonance diffusion, a process I described then as radiogenesis, universal transmission of information through or as light or radiant energy. And, of course, fresh questions arose. What is the relationship between knowledge and recollection? Can the future also be our past? Can what is happening in our planet now be somehow related of a drama that has occurred in other worlds? And if so, how can we avoid the pitfall of the extinction? In a poetic work entitled Earth Shaman, written in 1984, I attempt to deal with these questions. At the same time, I describe the history of Earth as a conscious organism. Using as a mythic container of hoppy descriptions of the passage between the three earlier worlds to the present world and the imminent passage of the fifth world, the image of the Earth that is developed in the Earth Shaman, the crystal Earth, owes much to my meeting with the Cherokee Indian lineage holder, the remarkable Diyani Wayahu, whom I met in the spring of 1984. It was she who, taking one look at Lloydine and myself, declared, "Your minds are very close. You should be working on with crystals." When began immediately to do so and found in crystals more precise tool for personal attunement and information gathering. Intuition that the Earth itself is crystalline in nature, I found research both in the Soviet Union and mappers Elizabeth Huggins and William Becker, confirming this possibility. Somehow the image of Earth as a crystal seemed to go along with the notion of galactic information transmission through the principle of resonant diffusion, a key coming to terms with the origin and nature of the Maya matrix. Early in 1985, I was contacted by a Maya, Humbat's Men. My name had been given Humbat's by Toby Campion, member of organization called the Universal Great Brotherhood, whose activity is largely centered in Mexico and South America. Through a series of hilarious late-night phone calls conducted by Pidgin Spanish, I learned that Humbat's was operating with 17 of the Maya calendars. Most archaeologists consider the possibility of only around half a dozen such calendars. Humbat's had also written a small text entitled Sol Ek, Mayan Astrology. Through perseverance and magic, Humbat's Men finally appeared in Boulder in March of 1985, when he gave his presentation entitled Mayan Astrology. The keys of everything that Humbat's presented, in which he left, had received through oral transmission, was in final aside he made during his presentation. Our solar system, Humbat's declared, is the seventh such system that the Maya have charted. There is no question that my meeting with Humbat's was the most crucial event in long history of working with the Maya material. Further discussion with the Yani Wahu, as well as the meeting with Harley Swiftier, confirmed for me that Humbat's had left me with the most important clue yet in realizing the nature of the Mayan system of thought. Indeed, the Maya information was transmitted as from far. but precisely how and to what end. It was following a gathering of neo-shamanic think tanks of Ojai Foundation in April of 1985, entitled The Council of Quetzalcoatl, that the presence of the phenomena I now call the Mayan factor finally asserted itself to me. In a simple sense, the Maya factor is an overlooked factor in the consideration of the meaning of human society. In a particular, is the consideration of scientific knowledge altogether. When we look at it again, it can be the Maya factor. It is presence of a galactic gauge, a precise mean for planning ourselves in relation to the galactic community of intelligence. Look at even more closely, microscopically even. The Maya factor is the consideration that we are at point in the 26 years short of major galactic synchronization. Either we shift gear right now or we miss the opportunity. My meeting with Terence McKenna, author of the intriguing Invisible Landscape, contribute greatly to this understanding of the Maya factor, for he too, by working with the I Ching, had been drawn into things Mayan. In particular, his I Ching fractal calendrics had led him to conclusions that we were involved in our final cycle of those whose 67-year span take us from Hiroshima in the 1946, oh my gosh, my nose, from Hiroshima 1945 to the Mayan synchronicity date of AD 2012. The completion of so-called Great Cycle would begin in 3113 BC. By the summer of 1985, I was certain that the code behind the Great Cycle was the key to unlocking the meaning of our own history and current dilemma. So it was that threw myself into renewed abandon into the Mayan factor. I don't know why it's been kind of rough. Sorry. In preparation for most recent trips, I began working intensely with the Mayan hieroglyphs. In particular, I involved myself with the 20 sacred signs, the key glyphs of the sacred calendar. Exposure of R.A. Schwaller de Lubbock's analogical studies on Egyptian symbology had given me a point of departure for my renewal studies on the Mayan glyphs. Immersing myself in the glyphs, making drawings or various arrangements of them, was profoundly revelatory. I found I was actually accessing information through the glyphs. This demonstrated to me that the Mayan factor was not dead or of the past, but still living system. In December of 1985, Loidine and I found ourselves in Yucatan, at largely an escape and immense site of Coba, the modernmost of classic pre-AD 830 centers of the Mayan civilization, and one of the largest of all the centers. With some 6,500 unescaped cultures, Copa has a presence that is epitome of the Mayan enigma. Still overgrown with jungle, high-step pyramids and ceremonial plazas provided an anchor to hub of vast systems of straight, flat roadways called Saukbeo, marked and defined by large hieroglyph sculptures. Some contain dates, or are there harmonic numbers? Referring to the events, an inconceivable point in the distant past, or some other systems. Koba provide the beginning at the end point of the month-long pilgrimage that ended in January 10 in 1986. In between, we had a brief sojourn to earthquake-racked Mexico City, Teotihuacan, and the volcanic highlands of Lake Pátzcuaro and Lake Chapala. Returning to the Yucatan, we set off with our friends from Creost Group, Francis Huxley, Adele Greedy, Colleen Kelly, and Robert Ott, on our tour of Yucatan that included extended visit to Oxmal and Chichen Itza, as well as the fantastic cave sites of Loldún and Balancanche, finally returning to the Caribbean coast of Coba. The visits to Oxmal and Chichen Itza were helpful, for putting into place what I have come to call the later or second disappearance of Kukulkan Quetzalcoatl. Arriving in the Yucatan AD 987 at the age of 40, Kukulkan revitalized a center of Uxmal and we're almost done here. And Uxmal and Chichen Itza, and founded the city of Mayapan before departing in AD 999. A year or so earlier, I had an opportunity to hear the Lakota medicine man, Gerald Red Elk, talk about relations between an identification of Christ and Quetzalcoatl. Pondering the ancient site of Chichen Itza, the distinguishedly proportionate temple of Kukulkan, and the numerous symbolic representations associated with Kukulkan, it occurred to me that Kukulkan Quetzalcoatl in AD 999 prophesied the arrival of Cortez and the coming Christianity to Mexico, was himself an incarnation of Christ. In the light of my drawing, understanding of the Maya and planetary navigation, and mappers of the larger psychic field of Earth in the solar system and the galaxy beyond, such thoughts of intimidation at the identity of Kukulkan and Christ seemed less and less outrageous. My discovery of the Mayan philosopher Domingo Paredes, who synthesized book, The Mayan Parapsychology, I read with avid interest, stimulating my further perception of the Maya as being of highly evolved psychic, as well as intellectual and spiritual abilities. Still, there was a question. Where did they come from? Or at least where did their information come from? And exactly who was it transmitted here? And how was it transmitted here? And our tour as our tour wound its way down to the Caribbean, further intuition concerning the Mayan factor formulated themselves. I was at Coba again, while standing atop of the Great Pyramid of Nunuchmul. The significance of the solar cult of the Maya, as well as the Egyptian and the Incas, began to make more sense to me. Indeed, the sun is not literally the source of sustainer of life, but is also the mediator of information beamed to and through it from other star systems. So-called sun worship, such as imputed the ancient Maya, is in actually the recognition and acknowledgement of higher knowledge of wisdom, is literally being transmitted through the sun, or more precisely, the cycles of the binary sunspots movements. The Solskin, or the sacred calendar, is a mean of tracking information through the knowledge of the sunspot cycles. Oh, wait. I read that wrong. The Solkin of the sacred calendar, it means a tracking of information through the knowledge of the sunspot cycles. The Solkin is also the information matrix that is communed by at least two star systems, creating a binary connection field through the sunspots. As for the source of information, it seems clear that the Pleiadians is one source. Argüelles is most like the other. The last evening in the Yucatan was spent in a simple thatched roof and hammock style hotel called Chacmul. The waves of Caribbean break and beacon consistently of timeless beach. At night, the stars spread their canopy of infinite recollection across the blackened sky, gazing along the endless impenetrable geometries across the black sky. Okay, hold on. I got distracted and now I need to, my computer turn off. All right, sorry. I have to read that again. The blackened sky, gazing along the endless interpenetrating geometries of star patterns. I felt incredible satisfaction welling through my being. in the sound of the wind, of the sound of the surf, in the sign of the dazzling magnificence of the stars. A deep and wondrous knowledge spread, touching every cell in my body. The Maya were returning, but not as we might think of them. Ultimately, their being, like ours, transcends bodily form, and precise for the reason the return can occur within us, through us, now. We woke up to the great dawn at Chakmul, swimming naked in the joint surf. I gazed upward, the sky ablaze with pink and orange clouds. Oh wow, pink and orange clouds. I just uploaded a video with pink and orange clouds. That's cool. Herald the coming day, saying goodbye to friends and acquaintances. We ended up in the coast of Cancun, the airport and the last industrial world. This time I return more myself than ever. And at the same time as another, the Mayan factor has retrieved. Perhaps the world cycle will yet make appointments in the galactic destiny. And look, is this picture. It says Mayan star signs. And that's it. That's it for chapter 1. This is the back. And we're gonna start next. I'm gonna probably do the chapter 2, the Mayan divination of harmony, either tomorrow or Saturday. But I hope you guys like this part 3 and last part 3 of chapter 1. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye. In Lakesh, you guys. Bye.